It's 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Hell to the Michigan Woman Speaker Series, which is our Lunch and Learn virtual meeting. This is our third meeting brought to you by UMAC. UMAC is the acronym for our wonderful organization, the University of Michigan Alumni Council. The Alumni Council, not the Alumni Association, is a group of women formed in 1917 who support the university in many ways. Many of us are graduates, and others are those who believe in what we are doing and support the university. We are a diverse group of women of all backgrounds, all ages, and nationalities. We have one thing in common. We love the University of Michigan. You can become a member of UMAC through our social media platforms by signing up. Now that you know who we are, let's get into our program. I am sure we will learn a lot and have questions for our speaker. We are so happy to welcome our presenter today, who is known to many in this area. We have invited Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy, a U of M graduate, to share her journey to success. But first, a lot, not a little, about Prosecutor Worthy. Kim Worthy is the first African American and first woman to serve as a county prosecutor in the state of Michigan. In 2004, Worthy was appointed by the judges of the Wayne County Circuit Court bench. Currently, as prosecutor, Worthy handles 52% of all the felony cases in the state and 64% of all serious felony cases that go to jury trial. Our speaker started as an assistant prosecutor in Wayne County in 1984 and served in this position for 11 years, becoming the first African American special assignment prosecutor under Prosecutor John O'Hare. I say that Kim Worthy became famous during the prosecution of police officers Walter Butson and Larry Nevers in the beating death of Malice Green. This took place right across the street from my church, so it was personal for a lot of us. Kim was on TV a lot, and we're all so proud of her. We all looked up to her, as we knew this was quite challenging. But of course, she was successful in the conviction of the two officers. Worthy had a 90% conviction rate and was elected in 1994 to the Detroit Recorder's Court, serving until 1997 when it became the Wayne County Third Circuit Court, where she would serve from 1997 to 1993. Prosecutor Kim Worthy has a continuous focus on violent crimes, family violence, and police misconduct. Our Wayne County prosecutor has been involved with and responsible for many programs, including 14 diversion programs that have taken over 25,000 adults and juveniles out of the criminal justice system. She wants people to do better and be better. Some of the programs assist first-time offenders. She works with the Mental Health Court, Alcohol and Drug Court, and with over 24 treatment courts in Wayne County. In 2009, Worthy began working on resolving a massive backlog of unprocessed rape test kits in Detroit. A huge number of kits were discovered in a warehouse that the Detroit Police Department has used for storage. Over 11,000 sexual assault kits were there, never having been submitted for testing. That's when Kim and other concerned caring women formed a public-private partnership to raise funds to test these rape kits. The partnership received donations and grants to help solve the rape cases. In 2010, Kim met Mariska Hargitay, whom we know from Law and Order. Hargitay has an organization called Joyful Heart Foundation, and Kim has been working continuously with Mariska's foundation. Today, Kim serves as the vice chair of Joyful Heart and was featured in a special documentary, I Am Evidence, which won several awards in 2019. Because of her interests and commitment to helping solve these cases, Prosecutor Worthy hosted a sexual assault kit summit, and she has given a TED Talk. She has received numerous awards and was inducted into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. Prosecutor Worthy has been an adjunct professor of law at the University of Detroit Mercy, lectured at Harvard Law School, the University of Notre Dame Law School, Wayne State University, and a university in France that I won't attempt to tackle the name because I don't speak French. She sits on several boards. Yes, she is a very busy Michigan woman, but she has never been too busy to be an amazing mother to her three beautiful daughters that I watched grow up to be quite accomplished. Her daughter, Anastasia, recently graduated from law school and now is following in her mother's footsteps. We know she too will be a successful attorney. Her twins, Aniston and Alessandra, will finish their last year of high school and travel their own course or path to success as well. After that long introduction, because I know there are so many things that Kim may not share with you, and I wanted you all to know about this dynamic woman. I move now to bring to you our featured speaker for our Hell to the Michigan Woman special event today. Please, everyone, keep your phones on mute. If you have questions, please use the chat. Now, we welcome our featured speaker for today, Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy. Thank you, Kim.
It's my distinct pleasure, and go blue to everyone. I do love the university. I was telling the committee women a little earlier that whenever I speak, and I won't have to say it today because you all know that the University of Michigan is the finest institution of higher learning in the entire world. And I believe that, and I say that all the time. So I do love my university. I went to law school at the University of Notre Dame, yeah. And but I especially enjoyed the rivalries when I was in law school, and we won just about every year I was there, where we made the priest from Notre Dame wear Michigan t-shirts, and we still revel and laugh about that today. So I didn't start out to be a prosecutor at all. In fact, I knew I wanted to go to law school ever since the sixth grade when I used to sneak downstairs because my parents didn't let me watch TV. My father is the first graduate from the state of Michigan from West Point. He graduated from West Point in 1953. He started out at Wayne State, met a young man that had recently flunked out of the school, got commissioned by John Dingell Sr., and went off to West Point in 1949. I mention that because he gave me my work ethic, and I owe successes to him. He is still living. He's 98 years old, and he is the oldest living graduate from Notre Dame, from West Point today. That's African American. So still pretty lucid. Has gotten very cantankerous though, but still is my role model, and I look up to him still. 98 years old. And so my mother had a master's degree, and that was unusual for African Americans back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And so they married when the same day my dad graduated from West Point in one of those ceremonies. And in fact, that wedding was featured in Ebony magazine at the time as well. So I come from a family of auto workers. They moved up from Georgia to work in the factories in Detroit, and that's how we're mostly based here, although not all the way. So when it came time for me to go to college, my father was working at the Pentagon for the Undersecretary of the Army, so we lived in the Washington, D.C. area. I wanted to go to a HBCU, and didn't even really know anything about the University of Michigan, except we used to always watch the Michigan-Ohio State games whenever they were played. And so he told me I had choices of two universities, and Michigan and Michigan State. So I immediately selected Michigan, and I don't regret for 1 second having that choice made by myself. And so I have benefited richly from my matriculation there, and that's where it all started, frankly. So there weren't that many African Americans in prosecution at the time, very, very few. And even though when we came to Detroit, because my mother died and my father relocated here and was able to continue his Army career here until he retired and started working for General Motors as an engineer. And so that's how I came to Detroit. When I graduated from law school, I said I want to come home. And that's what I did. I had never lived in Detroit before that. And so I was looking for a job and met Willie Lipscomb, who was one of the few African-American graduates from the Notre Dame Law School. And he said that John O'Hare, who was just appointed prosecutor at the time, this is back in 1983, was looking to diversify his staff because there simply were not that many people of color on the staff at that time. And so, long story short, I got the job and I found out very quickly that it was needed. I didn't want to be a prosecutor because we're all jaded in law school that that's not what you want to do. But it became very clear to me very quickly when you came from a city like Detroit, when you're living in a city like Detroit, and you have a very high population of people of color and even more diverse now, you need true representations on both sides of the aisle. Detroit at the time and still has the highest concentration of, I should say Wayne County, has the highest concentration of female judges, female lawyers, a high concentration of just every diverse group that you can imagine that work in the Detroit courts, in the Wayne County courts. I learned very quickly about justice and doing the right thing, no matter what. And so that I fared very well when I was assistant prosecutor. I then went on to the bench, as Linda has said, for about 9 years, and I was dissatisfied with how the prosecutor's office was being run. They wanted to pay people for convictions. The prosecutor at the time was not John O'Hare. It was Mike Duggan, who was the Wayne County prosecutor for about 18 months. I didn't like the job that was being done, frankly, and not just by him, but just the philosophy that was coming out. I thought that we should give more second chances. I thought we could be more humane. I thought we could be much more global and expansive. And so I decided I would run, and I run against him. He got a wonderful job opportunity to run the DMC. And so he went on to take that job, and I was appointed by the bench. We've talked about some of the things we've done, but I really want to focus on 2 or 3 issues. And one thing I want to focus on, because I think it's important to us as women, it's important to everybody, but especially us as women. In 2008, my office and the city of Detroit and Wayne County had just been embroiled in many, many scandals. As you recall, back then, the city of Detroit filed bankruptcy, and it's still known as the largest municipal bankruptcy in the country. No money. We had just convicted the mayor of the city of Detroit, which was unpopular or popular, depending on who you talk to. He was later convicted by the federal government, but we were the first to convict him. And people were asking us at the time, why are you doing that? And it wasn't until later when people talked about all the evidence that was against them that people understood that really we could not tolerate public corruption from anybody. And so we had a scandal with firearms, but then came the third scandal. One of my managers walked into my office and said, we've got a problem. Because of the firearms scandal, the Michigan State Police was coming over to run all of the forensics evidence for the city of Detroit. One of the things they wanted to do is look at all the places where Detroit had evidence stored. So I sent one of my senior staff members along when they looked at all these places. They walked into a warehouse that is now torn down that we didn't even know existed in terms of housing evidence for the city of Detroit Police Department. And he spotted what he thought was over 10,000 untested sexual assault kits. So that means we had at least 10,000 women, men, and children that had been sexually assaulted, and their cases were just sitting on a shelf, untested, not paid attention to, thrown away, and not regarded at all. I thought that was a travesty. I couldn't believe and I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that people would do that to, and I'll say women from now on, but we had a few children and men as well, that these women's lives didn't matter to anyone. We found out later that over 86% of these women were women of color. And it was just a total and complete travesty. I vowed a few things at that moment that I found out. I vowed that we were going to bring justice to each and every one of these sexual assault victims. I vowed that we were going to change the way in Michigan that we looked at sexual assault kits. And I have vowed that this was never going to happen to anyone ever again, a lofty vow, but that's what I thought. I went home that night and Googled 10,000 sexual assault kits, thinking that this is once again a problem that only the city of Detroit has. Because I didn't think anyone ever do that. Who would take a woman's report when she walked into the police department and ignore it, ridicule her, walk her away, don't believe her. And that's what we found out later that happened. Women were seeking help because they had been sexually assaulted in the most intimate of ways. And no one believed them. No one paid attention to them. They literally took their sexual assault kit and threw it on a shelf to collect dust, along with over 11,341 others. And I use this as it's fortuitous that we're talking, about, and we're all love the university because I use the big house as an example all the time when I talk. The big house houses over 110,000 people on any given Saturday cheering for our Wolverines. And when you look at 11,341 untested rape kits just in the city of Detroit Police Department, one police department in one city, in one county, in one state. And when I realized it was a global issue, that the conservative estimate was about 400,000 across the country of untested rape kits when we got into it months later. That is enough women to fill up the big house 4 times. That's how pervasive this issue was. As we all know, because we all hear the stereotypes about blaming the victim, especially when it comes to sexual assault, not believing them, especially when it comes to sexual assault, ignoring them, especially when it comes to sexual assault. You wonder why people, women especially, don't want to report it at all. And some of these kids we later found out were over 30 years old. That means these women have been waiting for justice for over 30 years. So what did we do? We've already established Detroit didn't have any money. Wayne County wasn't, and it wasn't the county executive we have now, Warren Evans, who's wonderful. It was Robert Ficano, I'll just name him, at the time, who was the county executive, who didn't want to help us at all. He literally told me this didn't happen on your watch. Why are you worried about it? We found out later that some sheriff's departments and police departments across the country and other areas were throwing away the untested rape kits. Not my problem. And I challenge people all the time. If your wife, if your mother, if your sister, if your niece, if your best friend that's a woman, even men are sexually assaulted, believe it or not, frequently, then this is how you want them treated. And so we went on and we changed the law with the help of then Governor Rick Snyder and some women that helped us champion this through. When we found out at the time that it would take $1,200 to $1,500 to test each kit at the time, we were looking at, millions and millions and millions of dollars to get this done, and no one had any, and no one wanted to help. So I started talking to everyone, knocking on every foundation door, knocking on every door that I could think of. I treated it like a political campaign because that's what it was. A campaign that unfortunately was political, even though we're talking about sexual assault. And finally, a couple of things happened. We had suburban women that heard about this issue, and they started hosting house parties. And I probably went to 40 of these when we'd raise $5,000, $10,000. We were trying to raise money to get these kids tested because that was the number one thing that we wanted done. There had been other states we found out later that tested all their kits, but then nothing happened. They didn't do anything with it. We wanted to not only test them, get the results, but investigate and prosecute them to make sure that we brought justice to as many women as we could. So we started raising the money slowly but surely. And one of our hosts knows because she was a part of it. We went to Detroit and looked at some of our Detroit women and the historically Black organizations, fraternities, sororities, and we gathered about a group of about 100 women that represented their own constituency. And we held a press conference and we raised even more. We formed African American 490 to raise money. We also partnered, as one of our hosts, as Linda said, we partnered with, finally, some of our foundations that helped us immensely, especially Michigan Women's Forward, and we partnered with them. And eventually, we were able to raise the money all over the country. We eventually, because it wasn't me, it was not me that leaked this to the press, but one of the reporters that worked for the Detroit Free Press found out about this and ran a story. And after that, everyone was outraged and we started raising money hand over fist when that happened. So we continued to work on it. We worked, and I won't tell you the whole history, but we finally were able to get the kids tested. We partnered with the Department of Justice, and at that time, President Obama was the president, Joe Biden was the vice president, and one of Joe Biden's signature moves his entire career was to help women with sexual assault. He was one of the authors of the Violence Against Women Act, and so you know his commitment, and they were able to get this money from Washington as well. Kind of one of the pivotal things that happened in 2010, I was summoned by the late, great John Conyers to come to, he was head of Judiciary at the committee at the time, to come to Washington and tell the House of Representatives, his committee, about this issue that we were trying to get going in Detroit. He called me the night before. I was able to fly out the next day. And it's just like you see on TV when you testify before Congress. You have a long table of people. You're facing the Congress women or men that are asking you questions. And seated next to me was Ms. Mariska Hargitay, who had been invited. I don't know how she was invited, but she was there. She had formed the Joyful Heart Foundation by then. And one of the reasons why she had formed it is because as Olivia Benson, who she played on TV, she started receiving letters, hundreds of thousands of letters from sexual assault victims whose cases had been ignored. And they had been inspired by Olivia Benson to go forward with their case or to feel better about themselves, to seek counseling. And when she started getting all these letters and other things, kind of the confluence of that and other events, that she decided to found Joyful Heart, who was dedicated at the time. And once we met and started working together, the entire mission was ending the rape kit backlog and changing the laws across the country so women would be treated better. So they supplied to us resources. They came to Detroit, but they also took a different approach. They have Heal the Healers, which we still have now as part of Joyful Heart, where they came to help the people who were doing the work for the sexual assault victims, the prosecutors, the police, the EMS, the fire, the sexual forensic nurses. And she came with her organization and she started doing that work with us. She was so moved by all this work, she decided to do a documentary, as Linda said, called I Am Evidence. And I was heavily featured, and in fact, it won an Emmy Award as Best Documentary, where we tracked Cleveland, Detroit, and Los Angeles and about how we all dealt with the rape kit issue. And if you haven't seen it, please go see it. It's a phenomenal piece of work, if I say so myself. It really shines the light on this issue. So going ahead, we have now convicted over almost 250 men from these rape kits. A lot of them are what I call super serial rapists. They raped over 10, 20, 30 women within the city of Detroit. So research shows that we certainly don't get them the first time they rape. Is by rape number 11 is when we usually are able to catch rapists. So I can't even tell you the amount of women that were raped within this particular project. Another statistic that we are, and when I say very proud of, I say that with a kind of a little bit of sorrow, because we found out just from Detroit's rape kit backlog issue, we found out that when we did the testing, it linked to other rape kits in 40 other states in the United States. So 39 other states, Michigan would be the 40th. So there's only 10 states in the United States of America that were not affected by the rape kits were found in Detroit in the year of 2009. Rapists don't stop at 8 Mile Road. They go on to rape in other parts of the country. Most rapists will rape men, women, children, although we don't really take rape kits from children anymore. But again, it's a pervasive issue. So again, about almost 250 convictions, but the most staggering statistic that we found out about is we were able to identify over 800 serial rapists within our project, over 800, from one city, one state, one city, one county, one state. And so that's how pervasive the problem is. One of our biggest things that we're proud of is we were able to change the law in Michigan. Now in Michigan, every police department, every hospital, wherever rape kits are done, because remember, not every jurisdiction in our state We have some very rural areas have forensic nurses like we have the benefit of having here in Wayne County. I believe they have them in Washington as well, but I'm not sure about that. And so a lot of people go to hospitals. A lot of people go to private clinics or small clinics to have rape kits done. And again, we were able to change the law that said that every single police jurisdiction in the state of Michigan had to do an inventory to see if they had any sexual assault kits. There was money that was provided. Not only we got $4 million to the Michigan State Police to test the rest of our kits. That was a big part of us getting all of our kits tested. But also some of the money went to some other cities and other states that did not have the project that we had, so that they could then look at their rape kits, inventory them, investigate them, and then prosecute them. And so the law also said, and it was my dream. One of the things I said from the very beginning is I want to have some kind of a tracking system. And as part of that tracking system, I wanted to have a victim portal so they could look and see if they were sexually assaulted and they still hadn't been contacted by law enforcement. They could look into this portal and see where the rape kit was. The whole idea is that if you track your rape kits from the time that they're submitted to the forensic nurses or the hospital or wherever the kit was done, we should be able to track them through the system in the criminal justice system. And the reason why we thought about that immediately, because we all shop, maybe some of us are boycotting Amazon right now, but we all shop online, and we know the minute we purchase something, the minute we place the order, they can tell us exactly when that package is supposed to get to your front porch, no matter where you order from in the entire world. So we said, if you can do that logistically, then you certainly should be able to track a rape kit through the criminal justice system. So we were the first state in the country to start working on a tracking system. We were not the first state that actually got one, but we were the first state in the union that started a tracking system. We now have one. We got it because we partnered with Dan Gilbert and Rocket Mortgage, and Rock Financial, I guess, is the parent company. And we used their logistics team, which was UPS. UPS did a tracking system for us for 16 months to see how it all worked, free of charge. And so then we based our digital system on that. And during that 16 months, and that's going forward, it was none of the old rape kits that were in the storage room, but it was going forward. So we tracked all those kits and we didn't lose a single one of them. We knew where they all were at every given time. And so we were able to do that tracking. And we now have a tracking system where everybody in the state of Michigan has been, from hospitals to doctors to prosecutors to police, have been trained to work the system. And if everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, every single rape kit that is done in this state is tracked and we know where it is. And if a survivor or a victim wants to know, that we have a special portal they can look into to see exactly where the kit is. And so that's one of the big things that happened as well. Lots of legislation around this issue. People finally got outraged. By my view, it took them too long to get outraged, but they got outraged and really stepped it up. And now Detroit is a national model about how we handle our untested kits. So we are still doing some of this work, but now we're doing some more exciting work. Some of you may remember the Golden Gate Killer that was finally caught many years ago. And it's someone who killed a lot of women in San Francisco and other parts of California. And when that case was announced that they had finally caught that particular killer, we were all wondering how they did it, because they were very cagey and didn't announce right away how they did it. So let me tell you how they did it, because we're now doing it as well. Some of us have been very interested in our heritage, and we buy the packages from Ancestry.com or from 23andMe, which I think now has gone out of business, and we want to know more about our family history. And so we use these ancestral type kits to track our family lineage. And so when you buy something from Ancestry.com and 23andMe when it was still in existence, those were private things. So in other words, people couldn't get into, they couldn't see what you were trying to do. But they have public, but they're very limited. So they have public databases too that do the same thing. And one of the reasons why people go to these public databases with their information that they got from Ancestry or wherever and upload their family information is because there are millions and millions you have a huge amount of more chances you're going to find more about what you're trying to find out about your family history. But those particular ones are public. And so law enforcement has access to that. And so it's called forensic genetic genealogy, and we're using that now. And so we work with a company called Parabon. We were able to use the money that we raised when we were raising money for the rape kits through some of the organizations that we worked with. And then we sent to Parabon 13 cases. Those 13 cases represented 61 women who had been sexually assaulted. And so they were obviously all sexual assault cases. And so it takes a long time for them to do the work that they do. But now, as a result, years later, we have convicted 7 or 8 super serial rapists who, most of them were raping young girls walking to school or to work. Prepubescent young girls, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, walking to school, standing at bus stops. And we have had many, many serial rapist cases that we have been able to solve using forensic genetic genealogy. Some of the ones you may have heard of recently is he wasn't in the rape kit wasn't in the database, but we used forensic genetic genealogy to charge a Detroit police sergeant who was, you may have heard, it was very widely covered, who raped 7 young girls walking to school and work. Our first case was a case called People versus Lionel Wells. And that was our first result from our genetic genealogy cases. He raped 8 young women. 2 were 13 years old who were walking to school and sexually assaulted them. And we were able to convict him, and he's spending decades and decades in prison. But one reason why I talk about this case is because we also were able to exonerate a young man who was in prison for one of the rapes that Mr. Wells did, and we were able to get him out of prison, Terrence Calhoun, because he did not commit the rape that he was in prison for. So these rape kits have yielded a lot of results. Because remember, sexual assault kits, the DNA, when you entered into the National DNA Database, which is called CODIS, C-O-D-I-S, it enables law enforcement across the country to not only solve sexual assaults, but also solve homicides and carjackings and robberies and home invasions, auto thefts. And so this tool is a very important tool for police and prosecutors. I can tell you that this has helped us solve a number of murders in other states just from our particular rape kits, and is a very, very unique tool. I want to just talk a minute about how we do that. And when we get this information from various defendants who have committed crimes and committed sexual assaults, we get their DNA profile. It's entered into CODIS. If the scientists take the information from the rape kits, they try to develop a genetic profile that they can get enough profile material. If they have it, we don't always have it enough for them to develop a genetic profile. They enter it into CODIS, and we get 2 kinds of hits. If the person is already in the CODIS system, we know who that DNA belonged to. But most of the time, we get what's called a case-to-case association. That means it matches with a genetic profile that's already in the system. It can match 7, 8, 9, 10 times matches, but we don't know who the person is. But we know that they're a serial rapist or a serial killer or a serial, I can't say that word, not serial offender. And so that is how we do the work that we do. So we are still doing the work today. We are still prosecuting these cases from these sexual assault kits that we found. Our oldest case was a woman who was 9 years old or 7 years old who was raped, and we did a rape kit on her, and she was 35 years old when she came to court to testify about her case. One of our first cases was a young man who was 10 years old when he was sexually assaulted. He was sexually assaulted by a man that lived near him in his neighborhood. He went to the gas station and he was trying to earn some money, 10 years old. So he was approaching cars, our young victim was, asking people if he could, pump their gas, if he could, wash their windows off. And this man walked up to him and said, "Yes, I have some work for you to do at my house." So the young boy went with him to the house, and of course he was repeatedly sexually assaulted by this man. He had ligature marks around his wrist and around his neck. He immediately went home and told his mother. His mother immediately called the police. a rape kit was done, sexual assault kit was done, and basically thrown on the shelf. So we found out later that this man had multiple convictions for sexual assault. He was living in a house with a young child that was 5 years old, his girlfriend's daughter. And this young boy, when he was ignored by the police, went and told his teacher. The teacher made a report, again ignored. And later on, when we were able to develop these rape kits, and his profile hit on a certain man who had done this case, we found him, tracked him down, and found him, and that is how his particular rapist was convicted. He was of course now an adult. He had just had a young boy himself, a young baby who was 2 months old. And that is the reason that made him want to come forward, because a lot of women don't want to come forward, but some men don't want to come forward at all. And he had just had a child, and he was very committed to make sure that this person got off the street. So that's just a few examples. I think I have a few more minutes, and I'll take any question that you want me to answer. But I just want to talk for a minute about our Conviction Integrity Unit that we formed back in 2017. I wanted to do it for a long time. Our Conviction Integrity Unit looks at cases where people might have new claims of innocence. And through the work that we've done in our Conviction Integrity Unit, we have exonerated or given relief to 34 men. I think it's closer to 40 now. Men that we have gotten out of prison for crimes they either did not commit, or because their trial was so devoid of due process and fairness that we gave them a new trial. Now, some of these men, frankly, I'll be very transparent with you, I still believe did what they said what we convicted them for doing. When I say we, it wasn't on this watch, but still, it's the office that I run, because most of these cases are 30, 40, and some 50 years old. But if you have a trial that's so devoid of justice, then that person deserves a new trial. And sometimes these trials are so open, not able to retry them. Unfortunately, here in Wayne County, we have a record that we don't like that we have, but we do. We are home to a man who was in prison for a crime he absolutely didn't commit for 50 years. 50 years. Richard Phillips is his name. And he was in prison for 50 years for a crime that he did not commit. And we were able to get him out of prison through the work that we do through the CIU. So we do a lot more work. There's always some interesting programs that we'll be announcing. As Linda said, we have a lot of diversion programs, because when I walked in the door being the Wayne County prosecutor, I knew that I wanted to have a situation where we gave people second chances. If people had committed, I'm not talking about people who commit murder or robbery, obviously, or sexual assault, but people who committed lower level felonies, and I wanted to be able to divert their case. That means is we charge them, we have them plead guilty if they are guilty, and then for the adults, because we have in the juvenile court too, we divert their conviction so they don't have a conviction. So they can go apply for a job and say they have never been convicted of anything, because they have not, if they successfully complete our diversion programming. For juveniles, we have at least 10 juvenile programs in our, or we used to, don't have that many now. We lost funding for some, but we're urgently trying to get some of that funding back, where we do not charge our juveniles at all. And instead we get them services. And if they successfully complete our program and go to school and get the services that are needed, whether it's anger management or counseling or needing housing, or their family needs transportation, we get all that for them. Our service providers do. And then we will discharge them, and they can then say they don't have any contact with the criminal justice system, because really the diversion programs are for three things. So this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I'll take some questions. When we have our juvenile division, we want to stop our juveniles for traversing that bridge into adult criminality if we can. We want to help our juveniles be successful. And we want them to complete school. We want them to have careers. We want them to do well. We want them to stay away from the criminal justice system. So that's why we have all of this diversion programming, as well as our specialty courts, where we deal with people who have drug problems, mental health issues, alcohol issues. We have a veterans court here in Wayne County. We used to have a homelessness court in the 36th District Court in Detroit. And so we deal with all of that, and we try to give people a second chance as well and get them the mental health services that we need. Some of you may remember in the 90s that then Governor John Engler closed all of our mental health facilities and really turned the Wayne County Jail into the largest mental health facility that there was, because a lot of people then turned to the criminal justice system that should not be there. Now, obviously, we have people with mental health issues that have committed heinous crimes, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who have mental health issues, and as a result, they have gotten involved in criminality. And even if they have, we want to find them services and hopefully get them diversion so they can be successful. But mainly, we want them to take their medication. If they've been prescribed medication, we want them to deal with their mental health issues. So perhaps we can keep them in the future out of the criminal justice system. Do all these and the many other programs that we have, and we have a lot of them, mean that we're soft on crime? No, we're not. Obviously, we vigorously prosecute anyone commits homicide or domestic violence. We get over 10,000 cases of domestic violence a year here in Wayne County. We get about 500 cases of child abuse here in Wayne County. And ever since the pandemic, and I'm going to end on this, ever since the pandemic, we have seen even more aggressive, even more violent forms of crime than we saw ever before the pandemic. And so we're dealing with all of that on a regular basis. We have dedicated staff that do this each and every day, from our investigators to our prosecutors to our advocates who work every day with the victims to our support staff that makes this office run. It's difficult, it's hard, it's challenging, but we always try to do the best that we can do to bring justice to our victims and our survivors. And prosecutors have a dual role. We not only have to represent the people of the state of Michigan and represent our victims zealously and be good advocates for them, but we also have to make sure that each and every defendant has due process rights. So we have a dual. You would think that was the role of a defense attorney, but it's the role of the prosecutor to do that as well. So again, when you are a prosecutor of color, you do seem to have a kind of a different version and vision sometimes. But again, we all want the same things. We want to have safe streets. We want to have safe schools. We want to have safe communities. We want to have safe neighborhoods. We want our children to be able to survive us and do well. And we just don't want people to be victims of crime. And we try each and every day to hold people accountable for that. So it's been my pleasure to talk to you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And we're asking that if you have a question, please put it in the chat. Julie does have questions for you. So Julie Nemeth, you had 2 questions.
Yes, these are from email, so I'm speaking on behalf of Elizabeth here. If I can, get my right photo here. It says, I have always admired Miss Worthy, would love to hear her take on how she grapples with so much in Detroit.
Yeah, it's not easy. And remember, I have 42 other cities besides the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit is the biggest one, but there are 43 cities, townships, and municipalities in Wayne County. And as you know, Wayne County is the largest county in the state. And we do anywhere from 18,000 to 22,000 cases a year, which is the highest percentage in the country from any other prosecutor DA's office in the country. I've been doing this for a long time. I was an assistant prosecutor for almost 12 years. I was on the bench I was a Wayne County Circuit Court judge and Recorder's Court judge for almost 9 years. This is my 23rd year being the elected prosecutor, so doing this a long time. So I've learned, many coping mechanisms, many skills, but I'm always motivated by, and this sounds so trite and so Pollyannish, but this is what I believe. To be able to look at yourself in the mirror every day without regret. You can't worry about what people think of you. You can't worry about how many protesters are outside your office, and it happens all the time. You can't worry about what people think. You can't worry about what other people will say. You can't worry about people, behind a keyboard on social media, trying to hype people up. All I worry about is trying to do the right thing in every case. And what I would like my legacy to be is that you may not have agreed with everything that I did, but I hope you would agree that I did it with the right heart, the right spirit, and the right passion is my hope. And you can vehemently disagree with me, and that's fine. I mean, reasonable people can always disagree, but we always try to do everything here with following the law, making sure we demand complete investigations from the police. We go to court. We want to prove our cases beyond a reasonable doubt, despite the many, many difficulties we have with judges, defense attorneys, and others, sometimes with the police too, oftentimes with the police. But we still strive and do all that the right way. The other part of your question, the other way I would handle that is how do we deal with this? About 4 years ago, we embarked on a wellness program for my staff. If you're seeing children that are murdered every day, you're seeing, 90-year-old women being beaten to death and sexually assaulted in nursing homes, if you're seeing people just coming outside and seeing their car gone, because that's a very important thing. It may not be a violent crime, but if it affects your ability to get to work and take care of yourself, and you park your car in the front of your house, you expect your car to be there when you go the next morning, or your house is broken into, or you come home and someone's in your house, or you come home and people have robbed you, have stolen from you, or your child has been abused, your baby has been beaten to death, and or, people put cigarettes out on babies and they sexually assault babies and children, 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 13-year-olds. When you see all that on a daily basis, it affects your mental health and the mental health of my staff. And so we started doing things like bringing in yoga instructors. We have what we call a Zen room, where we have a massage chair that took us forever to get, where you can just sit down for 5 minutes in the massage chair. We bring in therapy dogs, and just having dogs walk through our office and you have a chance to pet them just for a few minutes raises morale. We have a chiropractor that comes in. And just next month on National Ice Cream Day, I'm going to do what I've done before. We have a little cart and we decorate it into like the old fashioned good humor carts. I walk around my office and hand out ice cream to everybody. We have a snack day where we provide snacks for the whole office. We do all kinds of things for us. We have cider and donuts in the fall. We have our picnic. Everybody has picnics, but we have our picnic. That's just one thing that we do. So we try to do all these things. It's all the heal the healer mantra, to take care of the people who are taking care of people that have been hurt.
Right.
So those are a number of ways that we try to get through all this.
Thank you. And one more question from this email, and I just went into screensaver, unfortunately. Oh, the timing was awful. Let's see. This one emailer says, I've always admired Miss Worthy. I also credit her and other women of color in Detroit for keeping the city together during dark times. How does she identify allies?
Yes. We've had some people that have been our allies over the years, and we've had some people who have definitely not been our allies. The former county executive, and again, let me just say, not Warren Evans, who's a county executive now, who's wonderful, and understands our issues. The former Robert Fagano was just very, very hard to work with. Didn't give us the budget that we needed to run the office. We had to lay off prosecutors at a time where crime was very high. Definitely not an ally. We've had many, many police chiefs across the county. We probably had 8 or 9 just in the city of Detroit since I've been the elected. Some of them were very obstructionist. Some of them were very critical. Some of them didn't help our alliance and didn't help crime in the city. We've had our current police chief, who's Todd Bedison, is very good. The one before him, James White, and many others have been very, very good and easy to work with. We don't always agree, but we work well together. Elected officials are very important. Our funding, where my funding comes from, is very important. We have a very great set of Wayne County commissioners right now who understand our plight, who want to have safe schools, who want to work with us, and are very, very good to work for and care about their constituency and what happens to them. But it took me a long time to develop these relationships. And we have had allies from women's groups, which we talked about across the state, that I talked about. Other prosecutors across the state, some, not all, agree with our mission. But it takes time. And when I first started in being elected in 2004, a lot of the police chiefs in the county didn't like me because I prosecuted Butson and Evers, and we found them guilty of murder in the second degree for beating to death an unarmed black man who named Malice Green. And that I had done that in 1993, even before I became a judge and before I became the elected, when I was still an assistant prosecutor. But they remembered and didn't like me. And it took a long time for me to, even though I don't know why, and still to this day, don't understand why you don't want the bad people in your profession rooted out. And there are bad people in every profession, not just prosecutors, police, everybody. And so we forged those relationships, and now we have a wonderful set of police chiefs across the county in the 43 cities and municipalities that we deal with on a daily basis. But it took time. It took time to forge these relationships. It took time to work with people. I spent a lot of time going to people before I want to institute a program, or if I want to change something, if I want to talk to them about they need their officers trained, their officers made these mistakes. Because we formed this relationship, they have an open mind, an open heart, open ears, and they want to listen and get better. But that took a long time. I'll be very honest with you. That took a long time for that to develop. But we're in a very good place right now with our collaborations and partnerships.
We have some questions in the chat, and I know we have
Yep.
maybe about 10 minutes. So Sandra, you're monitoring.
I do. I have those. Claudette Crockett wants to know what we can do to assist your endeavors. You know,
Yeah.
as a group or as people in general.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that we deal with on a daily basis is proper funding for the office and not having prosecutors being handled a file at the last minute and having to read, we call it read slow, walk slowly and read quickly because we just don't have enough prosecutors and enough staff. It's gotten a heck of a lot better with our partnerships now, a whole lot better than it used to be. So I want to give them credit where credit's due, the commissioners, the CEO, but we still need funding. We are not as funded as well as the defense bar, who receives $300 million from the state. We get probably about $50 million from the state. We are mostly county funded, but we need help in that area. So if you have something happen in your community, you can call your state reps, your state senators, your national senators, and say fund your prosecutor's office properly. We want to make sure we have victim advocates. We want to make sure we are able to give services to our children that are sexually abused. Our domestic violence is a huge issue. It always has been, but it's huge right now. And it's gotten a whole lot worse since the pandemic, as child abuse and all the other violent crimes. When we were doing the rape kits, we relied, citizens helped us with our tallying and our developing a database. And so we don't have a lot of volunteers right now, but just the support through supporting your local law enforcement, your local prosecutors or DA's office is extremely helpful. Support our domestic violence shelters who always need help. Toothpaste, toothbrushes, sanitary napkins, tampons, food. You have children that are there and they've just been ousted, they just run away from their home. Support your local domestic violence shelters. Support your hospital. We're on a big campaign right now because we have Kids Talk. Kids Talk I can't describe it in a few minutes, but basically it's an organization that helps us forensically talk to children. So instead of having children talk when they've been sexually assaulted, having them talk to a police officer, a hospital person, the prosecutor, talk to the prosecutor again, and all these different people, is we can go to one place and we have a forensic interview and we all watch the child being interviewed and pass on questions. It's critically important. Well, they're facing a funding crisis right now. As some of you know who maybe work with nonprofits, the federal government right now is just not funding these programs, especially programs that help sexual assault and child abuse and domestic violence. And so I won't say more about that, but support those particular organizations that help children, help domestic violence victims. It is a big way that you can support the work that we do.
I have a comment from, and I apologize in advance for messing with this name, Faizah Shabazz. I've been a prosecutor for 20 years, not in Michigan. I've admired you since the Malice Green trial. Thank you for putting a better understanding as well as faces to the backlog of the rape kits.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I mean, I was not popular when I did that at all. When I did the Malice Green case back in the 90s, police didn't like it when we were prosecuting their own, even if they killed somebody. And so we have been, this office, even before me, John O'Hare, my boss, when was really big at making sure police brutality didn't occur. And it's much easier now. We have police chiefs now that want people booted out of their organization that are not. And I had a meeting this morning before I joined this call where we talked about 5 or 6 cases of officers that we're charging. And in 4 of those 5 cases, the chief was the one that was leading the charge for us to do something. It's up to them to do something for us to prosecute because what they did was so wrong, whether it be time card fraud or whatever. And so, or, shooting at somebody they shouldn't be shooting at. So again, those are I appreciate that very much. You know how hard it is to be a prosecutor, especially if you've been one for 20 years and how the tides change and how it's cyclical. And now it's very, very hard right now to be a prosecutor. Very hard.
And I know that we're limited on time. This might take you up until that. And from Roberta Zeld, can you comment on Detroit's challenges with graft and outright theft from the citizens of Detroit?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. Theft being someone's purse is stolen or their car is stolen,
No,
or
I'm talking about like like our Kwame and
Oh, okay.
corruption like that.
Oh, the public corruption, yeah.
Yeah.
You would think that with all of because public corruption cases always get a lot of publicity, always.
Right.
And you would think with all that, just think about the man who stole the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars from the Riverwalk fund, and how he defrauded all of that. Kwame Kilpatrick still owes millions and millions of dollars to the city of Detroit. And the federal government who prosecuted him after we did has been very aggressive in trying to get some of that money back. And I just don't understand how anyone thinks they can help themselves, especially if they're a publicly elected official or a person of public trust, help themselves to money and funds that don't belong to them. I don't get it. So it's very, very frustrating. We do a lot. We've gotten a lot of cases lately where people have literally stolen from their employer in the sense that, time card fraud, embezzlement, theft, all of that. And these cases are very hard to do. They're hard to put together, but we prosecute them zealously all the time. But they're the ones that tend to take a long time to put together. We have a deed and mortgage fraud unit here, and where people literally steal houses out for people that are living in their house, and they come home one day and they can't get into their own house, and they find out they don't own their house anymore. We have, we had the one case I talk about all the time. We had a pastor of a church who stole. And if you know about the Black church, and maybe in other churches you have what we call mothers of the church, and they usually are the church members that have been there the longest time, and very revered by the rest of the church family. We had a pastor that stole from 5 mothers of his church their houses. He preached in front of them every day and stole their houses. And so we have people that do that. We have grifters. Recently, we have a case now that I won't talk about in detail, but we have a case out of Dearborn that we are working on now, where a man literally fleeced over 30 people of money. He developed trust. It was all a big scam, and to the tune of a whole lot of money. Why people do that, I don't know. Let me just say, because I've talked about so many people that do horrible things to people, the overwhelming majority of people are good people, are people that have good hearts and just want to raise their families and just want to have good life and leave things to their children and work in the community and our community, the overwhelming majority. But we see the ones every day who are not.
Were those all the questions answered in the chat?
Those were all the questions in the chat. Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Kim again for taking time from her busy schedule to be our speaker today. And I'm sure we all learned something that we didn't know. And we appreciate you, Kim, for all that you do. I just think you're an outstanding person. I'm glad to be connected with you through the University of Michigan. We embrace you. We love you. We support you. And I just trust that everyone enjoyed, and we want to thank Kim again, but we appreciate everyone who joined us today. We'll be back again in September, actually Wednesday, September 16th, for our next Hail to the Michigan Woman event. Look for details to come from our marketing department. I'm so very proud of all of the women. Hail to the Michigan Woman. All the women.
And go blue.
Go blue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.